called the G1 license bundle, which gives you email, OneDrive, Teams, that kind of stuff. But yeah, the biggest change is you go
Yeah.
it's considered odd.
Do you see his face, Rebecca?
Software for licensing, permitting, code enforcement,
Oh, okay.
EV logic replacement.
What's that?
Keep asking about.
You take a picture of it?
I probably found it out in writing, and now I know the power because she would never tell me.
I thought it looked familiar, but I've only seen him up close and once. But if he's here alone, that's not a violation if he's with me. No, he's not. I thought it was just with her.
Servant sent out the email about.
Yeah, they ask you to do that for the investigation. I'm so excited.
All right. Let's call our meeting to order. Take a roll call. Just want to okay. Item C will be approval of the minutes from the 20th of August. Motion to approve. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Carries. Minutes pass. Move on to item D2, charter ordinance.
At the last meeting, the committee had recommended that we send a charter ordinance to the council, so this is a copy of that. We'll have it introduced for the council next Tuesday. Steve's staff for scheduling for us.
Any questions on that? The increase?
Yeah.
Do we feel that's enough?
Well,
I'm gonna have a stroke.
Ramp up to there.
what's yours, Peggy, since you mentioned that, what's your,
Well, I think, I'm not doubting that we need it. I think we've talked about that a lot of times. I think higher than that would be really tough. I think the
Okay.
council's been very concerned about increasing it at all over the last 2 years that I've been in discussions, so
Has that
it would
been-
be a tall order.
has that been consensus, or has that just been a few loud voices of the 10?
I think one meeting last year, there were 5 of them here when we discussed it,
Okay.
so.
The effect is, doesn't have to be spent anyway.
It does
if
not
it's no
have to be
need for it.
spent.
And that maybe should be stressed?
So
Or,
I see no problem with it. but
or
it's
do we
nice.
wanna go incrementally up?
Fine with the $1 million if we can do it.
And you'd have to have public hearings 4 times, is that, if you do it over 4?
Mhm.
Well, maybe that's not worthwhile.
So Yeah, I guess the budget's gonna dictate what, you know, the budget and the tax rate will dictate whether we can do it or not. But if we added, let's just say for the next 5 years, if we added $1 million every year, our debt payments would be substantially different.
What was it adding $1 million every year?
Well, each year it gives authority.
Annual,
Okay.
annual amount would go up, so.
So add another 25% of, on what we currently do. Three.
So is this approving it again, or have we're open to
We made the
adjustments?
recommendation last time. This is the ordinance that the committee, yes, so if we're gonna,
Okay. Change it, we
Change
have
that.
to vote on it, if not, there's
yeah,
no action.
otherwise it would just go as it was recommended last time.
Okay.
Just one last question. So if this is to increase it and that fails, then what do we?
Then we would
I
stay
mean,
as
can you
is.
increase it without doing the charter, like 100,000? It has to, okay.
Not for streets. The charter ordinance says streets can only be 2.75 million. So without an increase, streets cannot be. Now, as you see from the 2019 plan, we did separate some of the ancillary items out that weren't necessarily streets, but I think we're walking a fine line on that because in the past, they've always been included as part of the streets.
I don't think my staff can all of a sudden do $1 million more work next year, but if we don't have to spend it all, then we can just do it once.
Or even if it's just the ability to go over by a small amount to add one additional project, that would give you that flexibility.
Excuse me, counsel. I just showed up, there was a little bit bad traffic, and I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make the recommendations to approve to the council that $1 million bond.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. We don't have to approve it if it's as is, correct? So if nobody wants to change what was approved at the last meeting, then we'll
We'll
just
say
move,
this, okay,
we'll move on.
all right.
Is there any desire to adjust last meeting's actions? I don't see any. All right, then we'll move on to item 3, draft 1 of the capital improvement program.
Mr. Chair, since the meeting last week, the departments went through and reported any changes on, I passed out a sheet that shows the changes we made at the last meeting. And then there were an additional 8 additional updates that came between last meeting and tonight. I don't know if you want me to go through those at this point, or if people can make adjustments to their books between now and the next meeting, or as they wish.
Does anybody wish to have them elaborated on, or can we just read them on our own? Anyone? I see Pete nodding.
So I would just have a question on number 3, the Liberty Heights thing. I don't think CDBG funding has that kind of money.
It would take some time. The splash pad conversion would be around 420,000, and a pavilion would be around 750,000. So, let's see, we have something going on up here. But yes, over a few years, we could get to that, or at least do one part of it, and then come back to another, so. It would, if you want to do it all, it would require additional funding.
Mr. Chair, I wonder, we did talk or contact the school district if they want to be part of it? Or-
Not yet. This was
yet?
just,
Okay.
on last week's meeting, I quickly called the consultant, and got some estimates and recent ones in Germantown, Greenfield, I can't remember, Fitchburg. And they had some very cool designs, and so we haven't even gone to the space analysis and things like that, but, if you were gonna do a very nice one with a kitchenette and some storage space and ADA bathrooms, some comparable ones were almost 750,000.
So I guess the reason I asked is because remember we had talked as staff about what CDBG could cover. I had talked to Patrick after the meeting last week, and he thought perhaps 5 to 550,000 next year. So as we're going through all the projects, and we can maybe just keep in mind all of the CDBG eligible projects and see how that works out.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions then? If there are no questions, then we'll just proceed the updated information. I don't see any other questions, so we will, sorry, a little distracted.
If you go halfway down the page,
Okay.
have items that we have
Okay.
people prepared to
Yes, yes, yes,
discuss
yes, sorry.
here.
Thank you. Why is there a lot going on tonight?
You can just approve them if you want.
Yeah. So we've got clerk, IT, police, admin, engineering, and public works, vehicles and equipment. We wanted to maybe take, because Jim is here, do you want to take public works, vehicles off the top, or what's our preferred order?
Well, both Steve and Tony are here special for this. I
Okay.
think Jim is here also to answer questions for Dave.
Okay.
So,
Well, clerk's
because,
got one item, we can roll through that. And Tony's incredibly brilliant, and doesn't make frivolous requests, so we can.
I try not to ask for a lot.
Not that any others you could do. So we can start with the clerk.
Sure.
Holds.
How do you want me to present?
Um,
Explain it? I mean, I had the information in the request form. I could expand on that.
I think it's just a simple summary of it. Be okay for me.
Okay, I'll try to make it brief. Electronic poll books are a station with a screen that swivels around for voters to sign and for the inspectors to log in information. High benefit to the current process. We'd get rid of all of the paper poll books. The system allows for multiple wards to be loaded in there, so we have like 4 polling sites currently with multiple wards, Hale being one of them. It's got 3 wards there. Rather than having 6 poll workers on 3 sets of books, 3 pairs of books, everything would be loaded on this, and any voter could go to any available line. So they come up, if there's this line is open, they go to that one, and it doesn't matter with the specific wards, because the system is going to automatically generate the numbers. A ticket spits out, is given to the voter with that particular ballot style, which then they'll go to a different table and get the appropriate ballot. After the election, the information is put in, on election day, it's all loaded onto a jump drive, and then that jump drive is taken after the election day and put into our computers and loaded right up into the statewide voter registration system called WisVote. Right now, it takes us days, weeks to enter in all of the voter participation info and all of the voter registration info. All of that is just automatically uploaded in basically minutes. So it's replacing an awful lot of staff time that's handled after the elections. The other benefit is it reduces errors throughout the entire process during election day. The poll workers are offered these like text bubbles that tell them exactly what to say to the voter, what to ask the voter. So it reduces the risk of the poll worker inadvertently saying something they shouldn't be saying, or missing a particular process, like when they're checking the IDs, there's certain things to ask during that. People can register online, or register right there. It's got the entire state database of addresses in there, so when voters come in to vote, or register to vote, oftentimes they give us incorrect information or missing information. This will pull up their previous address, they'll put in all the information, and there's less of a chance of us having to go back to the voter after the election and asking for the missing or incorrect information. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, but I don't want to get too detailed.
Does anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Chair? So, at some point, could you just go to any polling place?
They haven't gotten to that point yet. They still want you to go to a polling site because we're still going to have to staff the polling sites with ballots. So if I have them go to any polling site, then I'd have to have every single polling site prepared with all 25 ballot styles.
And are we ready to go with this for 2020?
We will be as soon as I get it. The tricky part is they're requesting that the order be placed they actually changed it from the document that I provided, from middle of September to October 18th. However, knowing that I need any invoices or whatever to appear on 2018, I could place the order now and won't actually get it until 2020. So that's not a problem. It's gonna be, I'm gonna have to implement it, get poll workers trained, get a lot of information out to the public. I came across a video from another municipality today that kind of was like an introduction to the product, to the public, so I could work with Maddie on that one.
You need the money this year, though?
This is for the 2020 budget.
Okay. I mean, it's not like you're gonna buy it this fall.
No, I'm gonna order it. I won't purchase until then,
Okay.
if approved. State right now has a requirement of a minimum of 1 per 800 voters. With 32,000 registered voters, that puts us at a minimum of 40. I'm asking for 50. There's a couple aspects to that. I'm currently working on trying to combine some of the polling sites, so I may not quite need the 50. However, I don't want to go with the minimum because I want to be able to have access for voters at the polling sites, open up plenty of lines, especially for the larger sites. And I also want to have 1 or 2 backups as we have with the other voting equipment. And you mentioned, Peggy, earlier about CDBG. I was talking to Luke, and there's a chance that this might be eligible, so I'm gonna at least try for some CDBG funding, unless Patrick says otherwise.
I gotta think about that one.
I'd have to
Function of government is not a eligible expense.
Well, yeah, we'll talk offline about that, but I'm gonna try.
Certain locations, maybe?
I don't know, there's some, I gotta double check that.
Yeah, it's just said there's a chance, so if I can try, I'll try.
Steve, do you have an approximate amount, what would be the cost, the initial cost?
Slightly less than 100,000 for the equipment.
Yeah, okay. But it would save problems, it would save a lot of wasting time
Oh, yes.
and everything else.
Save a lot of time and save a lot, or reduce the amount of risk for error. So my two
It's a
biggest
good idea,
concerns.
really.
Yeah.
You gotta be efficient, you know, I mean, I gotta be ahead of the time, you know? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
A good idea, Steve, I like that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, are there any other like ongoing costs for the machines?
Not as far as I'm aware. The information the state provided gave all the information. It doesn't sound like there's annual cost. I'm guessing if there's like some sort of update, they might charge something for that, but they're not giving that information out at this point in time.
Is there an estimated life on the machines?
They didn't give it, so I really can't answer that. Judging by every other piece of equipment that has gone out there, it's typically about a good 10 to 15 years. However, I imagine the state is going to, they told me that once they secure the program or get the program stable, they would eventually look at moving to some other kind of cheaper device, but this is like years down the road. So ultimately, replacement of these will probably end up being cheaper.
Do a lot of communities use them already?
They're starting to. There were several municipalities this spring that went into a pilot program, and then there's several more that bought a bunch recently and are going on board. I think there were 9 polling sites throughout the state last fall that tested it out, and then a bunch more came on board during the spring. I actually I witnessed Milwaukee was testing them out at 2 of their sites last election, so I went and saw it in action. And then I took a demo class at my conference last week.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you. Next, we will take on IT. Tony?
So thanks for having me here. It's my pleasure to speak to some of the requests IT is making this year. I'm actually going to start by talking about an item that's not on the list from IT. It's the second one from the bottom. It's the virtual city hall software that Rebecca has put forward. I can't overstress to this committee how important I feel that investment is. That would be a new software solution that streamlines how the city does all its permitting, licensing, and code enforcement work. I think many of you know we started to try building some of that ourselves on a product called BP Logics, and that just hasn't scaled very well for us. So if I could make a plug-in for that one, even though I'm not really sponsoring it, I see that as a critical investment for the city going forward. So I only have 3 items I'm actually asking for funding in 2020. They're kind of towards the middle of your page. The first one speaks to $20,000 to maintain our city camera system. So these are not the cameras that are on the police officers. These are not the cameras that are in the dashboards of the police vehicles. These are the cameras we often have mounted on telephone poles, around walls, around city buildings that are pretty much doing security, surveillance type video. We have over 300 of those in the city, and some of them are up to 15 years old. And so when I came here about 1.5 years ago, we had really no money put aside to maintain that existing camera network. So last year I put forward a multi-year request. You can see 20 grand every year for the next 5 or 6 years to start enhancing and maintaining and replacing some of those old cameras. I think last year I got 15 of the 20 grand, so thank you for that. I've used as much of that this year as I could. We put some new cameras up, get nice, I was hoping this would be color, but when you put a new camera up, you get some really pretty good footage. Unfortunately, a lot of the cameras in our city, this is more what you see, which is a very foggy, kind of almost useless image. So the 20 grand would be spread out over all our camera networks, just to take the ones that are most troublesome and fix them. So that's that request. I will also offer that because when we spend this money, we're actually buying parts that are pretty inexpensive, but in accumulation they add up. I think it could be an option to move this into the general account instead of having it be a capital item. I've talked to Peggy a little bit about that, but for now we're standing it up as a capital item because I know that there's tight pressures on the general account, but it's basically a replacement program for our camera system. The second item, any questions on cameras?
Yeah, I would like to touch a little bit on the cameras. What would be the problem in a critical blocks, where there's more traffic, more cars maybe going fast? Say like Lincoln Avenue, east and westbound, sometimes they go in 50 miles per hour, even more, it happens many times. I know, again, I was talking about before about the cameras, they can take pictures and the violator will get a ticket right at the house.
Yep. It happened to me in Chicago one time. I was going too
Oh,
fast
see.
and I got a ticket mailed.
So is something could be accommodated with your technology department?
Yeah, we could do that. This request wouldn't get us there. This request would be just fixing the cameras we have.
First, you gotta take care of one
Yeah.
problem, you know? Yeah.
Also, Alderman Vitale, those are currently illegal in the state of Wisconsin. But we
What's
did
not
have-
illegal, you know?
We did have that.
Paving is not illegal, you know?
Well, we did have that bill we're working on with the state that they're trying to
Yep.
I
allow
know,
them
I know,
in
but
first and
just
second class
ideas,
cities,
so.
but right now it's, and that, if it does pass, would require capital outlay from us, so we may be crossing that bridge soon. Yeah.
Not all the cameras you see in the city are ours, so if you go up and down Highway 100, you'll see a lot of cameras. Those are state cameras, so I don't really play a role, and my department doesn't play a role in supporting or maintaining those. But
You know, just it puzzled my mind, really, my brains, really. How the state, you know, I mean, for something would be really effective, you know, would be, I think, just as good for the police department.
Yep.
You know, really, in all fairness. And the state is, well, no, we don't want to pass anything like that, that's illegal, you know? Give me a break, you know, sometimes they move on something that's so stupid, you know, pass a ruling, you know, to me, that's not a really the way they should manage some of those guys, it matters on the state, really.
You're getting on one of your rants.
I hope I'm not expected to respond to that.
I don't want to get those guys upset, you know?
All right.
I don't want to get them
So,
upset, you know?
moving on to my second item, DocuWare is a product we rolled out last year. It's a document management system. I think Peggy's department is probably the most heavy user of it. The request here is to buy a few more licenses to get 4 more departments to be licensed to use DocuWare as a product. I think we've got some good momentum with DocuWare. I'm not going to explain everything it does. It just helps us maintain a lot of the documents that support the city and has some good features with searching and retaining the documents. So it's really an expansion of what we started last year to get 4 more departments using DocuWare.
So Tony, will that get every department to be able to use it?
Just about, yep.
Because if it doesn't, then it doesn't pay for us to do it for AP.
Okay.
So the accounts payable piece of it is, basically, it's a product flow.
Yep.
So if Pete gets if we get an invoice and it belongs to Pete's department, we can electronically route it to him, he'd be notified, and it'll go through the process that way. So it's a really cool thing for accounts payable, but if we don't have every department accessing it, it wouldn't be worth creating 2 processes, one for
Got it.
those who have it and one for those who don't.
I know this gets us really close. I don't know if it gets us all the way. I'll come back to the committee with that, maybe at another meeting. Finally, so the council approved a request about 6 months ago for us to start moving to something called Office 365, which is Microsoft's new platform for doing email and other things. And so we're on that migration path to move our entire email and calendaring system to Office 365, and the plan is to be complete by the end of the year. What this request is to then add our use of all the Microsoft Office products also to the cloud, and that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those kinds of tools. This year, we'll still be running those inside our own data center, and we're using a version from 2010. So if this item gets funded, we will upgrade our Office products to the most recent Microsoft version, which is 2018, and we would be using those in the cloud. And that would pretty much fully complete our move to the Office 365 platform and really use that platform the way Microsoft intended for it to be used. It's a relatively small number because not everybody in the city uses the Office products. It would be only for folks that are kind of like in clerical or administrative jobs that use Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So that's the figure you see there, the $20,000 is the licensing cost to get that accomplished. I really wasn't prepared to talk to the 2 items for 2021 and 2022. Those are more or less upgrades to our core infrastructure for storage. But I don't have I didn't do enough research on that really to speak to that tonight.
Okay. Any other questions? Vince?
Chair. Yeah, go 365, like today, I mean, I tried to get on it, you know, then all of a sudden they say, well, password is not valid. What the heck, I either written down like a
That's,
great person, you know, I mean.
Alderman Vitale?
The way I won't forget.
this is different. This is Office 365.
Oh, okay.
You're
But that's
thinking, you're thinking of the wellness
Wellness,
program.
You might be
yeah.
But
thinking,
that's
yeah,
part,
go
I mean, in a way, that's, I like to mention that, I have so much problem with that, you know, those 365, and I don't know why, Tony. What's-
Maybe someday you'll see me request a project to get down to one authentication system where we only have one password we have to remember. But yeah, today we have
That's-
a lot of different IDs and passwords for all the different systems.
So,
we
yeah, I think it fits all kind of, for me, I mean, it should be like Tony says.
You don't want to add retinal scanning to the,
No,
Yeah.
Just chip our employees.
I do have one question.
sure.
Patrick?
Thank you, Mayor. The security camera replacement, but do you have any money budgeted to add more cameras to the network?
We usually use the money allocated from here to do a little bit of fixing and a little bit of new. Sometimes departments can use some of their own. Some departments in the city have a very small amount of IT discretionary funds available to them to buy things that are very unique to their building, and I think police often has a little bit of money put aside to buy special cameras just for their own use. So sometimes the purchasing of a new camera can get funded outside of IT, but then we're usually on the hook to maintain it going forward. I think of the 15,000 that you gave us this year, I think we've put 2 or 3 new cameras out in the system. The rest have been replacement parts and pieces, getting ones we have working again.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the police department.
So I'll try and be as
Chief Bob.
concise as possible. Thanks for having me, and if you have any questions along the way, just let me know. The investigative squads, so we have about 10 investigative squads. This funding now we've been requesting for the last 2 years. Prior to that, we really didn't have a funding mechanism to replace our investigative squads, so we've been trying to work on that over the last couple of years. We have 10. If we replace 2 per year, that would get us a 5-year rotation for investigative squads. Right now, the vast majority of them are 2009s and 10s, so our goal is to rotate them through so they're gone after about 5 years. And then any extra vehicles that we would have, like we have in the past, would go to, we offer them up to bins and for other city use. The marked squads is a similar scenario. We have approximately 30 marked squad cars, give or take. And so if we rotate 6 per year, that's pretty much been the standard now for the last several years. That rotates them about every 5 years. In talking to our mechanic, Pat Sams, that seems to be a pretty good replacement cycle so that we're not into a situation where we have to spend a lot of money on repairs and ongoing maintenance and things like that. If we can get rid of them at about the 5-year mark, that seems to be a good balance between getting the useful life we need, but not running into costly repairs. So that's those 2, and again, those have been now ongoing. The marked squad's ongoing for several years, investigated for the last 2 years. The squad camera replacement, all of our marked patrol squads have cameras positioned in the vehicle. There's actually 2 cameras. One is directed out the front windshield. One is in the back of the squad to capture what the prisoner or suspect is doing. And then they work in coordination. There's certain triggers that trigger those, speed, emergency lighting, if you manually turn it on. And so it's just, and then it's on a constant loop. So it's constantly recording, so every time you hit the button or it's triggered, it actually goes back in time and grabs the prior 10, 15 seconds or whatever you have it set at. The current ones that are in there are from like 2013, 2014, and they are reaching end of life. In fact, I had a conversation with Jack today about the squad cameras, and the company, Utility, is not likely to offer us a maintenance package because they're not going to replace those products anymore. In which case, we wouldn't be able to replace the cameras and parts anymore, they would require us to purchase a whole new system for the car. So in light of that, we began researching alternatives, and the alternative for the squad camera is to go with Axon, which is the same company that provides our body-worn cameras. And so there's a lot that goes into that, but a major benefit, one of many for Axon, is that they offer the cloud storage as opposed to on-site server storage that we have now. And then it also, it packages into a nice bundle so that when we type in a case number, it would give us not only the body-worn camera footage that's associated with that case number, but it would give us the squad camera. And then what I'll talk about in a moment is it would give us the interview room, any interviews that come, and it would all be packaged into a nice bundle. We send that link to the DA's office or anywhere that we're going to send it, and we would ultimately have a very, very streamlined process. Obviously, Axon is a very, very well-respected business within the industry and usually a leader in their technology. So we're looking at replacing our outgoing utility squad cameras with Axon squad cameras. And we believe we'll get a number of benefits from that. Another thing that they can do is within the squad camera, when you activate it, you have the ability to set up a scenario where as soon as that squad arrives, it will activate all of the body cameras that are within a certain distance of it. If you build that system out, there are other things you can do that it will interact with any other Axon or formerly Taser related products. So that is the squad camera replacement. I'm going to skip down real quick just to the interview room camera replacement. So right now we have 6 interview/interrogation, but for purposes of conversation, I'll say interview. We have 6 rooms where we can talk to people in. 2 of them currently have video and audio. 2 other ones have just video with no audio, and then 2 have nothing. So we have kind of a composite of different things, and they're in different systems. The 2 that are video and audio are in our records management system. The other 2 are in ExacuVision, and then the other 2 don't have it. The system is again, cumbersome and kind of fractured and fragmented, and just a lot quirky and doesn't always work. And in fact, it's a scenario where officers are to the point where they don't necessarily trust the current system, so they'll bring in either their iPhone with a recording app or a digital recorder as a secondary device, because we have had times where the system failed. So we're interviewing people on, violent felony, serious crimes, and we're not certain that the current recording system is going to do what it needs to do, so they usually will have a secondary device. In addition, you have to activate from your desktop, and then you have to walk to the interview room, and it's just not a real good process. The Axon interview rooms would do all of the interview rooms. Again, it would upload to cloud storage. It would package it with the rest of our digital evidence from Axon, but there's essentially a tablet on the wall that you can control it and see right away, right outside the room, is this working or is this not working? And probably something that we should have looked at a while ago, but obviously cost is a factor. But it would put us in a position where we would be comfortable with our recording equipment, and it would just help us going forward. So that is the interview room camera replacement. And then lastly for me is the electronic parking citations. We've been looking at our parking citation process from start to finish, from the time an officer issues it to the time that suspension notices are sent out, and we're working with payment on the back end and how that moves through the process. We've looked at a variety of different things. We spent some time looking at a company called Jatecna. Ultimately, that didn't pan out for us. We looked at trying to integrate it with Alpers, and that didn't really pan out for us. And we looked at doing some internal things, and that didn't really work out for us in terms of melding with our current systems. But they found a system through Civic Smart that will ultimately save us a ton of time and effort, a lot of staff time. Right now, when an officer writes a ticket, he's writing it by hand, and it gets submitted, and ultimately, clerical staff has to now enter all that information, and it's a very, very manual process. What's being proposed here is that they would issue citations with a handheld device that would be computerized and digital, and as soon as the officer fills it in and issues a citation, it's automatically uploaded in the system, so it doesn't have all the back-end staff entry time, and we believe there could be a savings in terms of staff time. Now, obviously, it does come with a cost, but it will certainly streamline the process for us, and then it would allow us to allocate staff to other functions that we believe would be important for us to complete as well.
Is that similar to what Milwaukee uses?
Yeah.
I'm not, is it?
They use G-Techna, but the Civic Plus is Civic Smart is a competing product. But
Okay.
when I was looking at this, if I could, just offer
Sure.
a comment.
Sure.
I found it amazing that at the time an officer in West Allis writes a parking citation, it can take up to 3 days for the person to be able to pay for it online. So you got a resident who just got a parking ticket, they're not happy, but at least they're willing to pay it right away, and then they go to our website, and sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days before they can pay it. Very frustrating, so this would make it almost as soon as the parking ticket's issued, they'd be able to make a payment and clear that from their record. And if I could, just about the cameras and the rooms and the squads, I don't have the data on this. I know that IT gets about 1,000 tickets a year from police and fire. And I know a lot of those have to do with the cameras that you spoke of. Even though we don't pay for and support the dash cams, often my guys get involved with fixing them with the vendor. So you're looking at a pretty significant cost outlay to upgrade those systems, but I think on the back end, you would see a reduction of work in my organization with a new system, because the one you got right now, we don't like it. It's causing a lot of issues, both in the interrogation rooms and in the vehicles themselves.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Becca?
Regarding the servers, is there a specific server for all this, where all this data is stored, that we will no longer need to be replacing going forward?
So at least one, without going too much into detail, the squad camera server, all of the squad camera gets offloaded onto a server. It stays there essentially for 120 days, and then if it's not needed or archived in any way, it just kind of stays on that server and gets dumped after 120 days. If it's needed as evidence, then it's pulled off and put onto a separate server, which houses that and other things. So, but there is at least, yes, one server that we would be able to get rid of. But what we would be doing is we would be saving various other servers from housing all of that data, which would extend the life of that. So, for example, the interview room cameras, that goes into our RMS server, into Phoenix, and it's saving video onto the Phoenix server, which would save that. The other stuff is going into the DIM server, which is an entirely separate server, which if we continue, we will have to expand that server, which will come at a cost. If we can transition to one of these, it will, we'll be able to offload stuff out of DIMS, and we'll extend the life of that server by pretty significantly.
And the squad footage will be happening in the field right now. Now, don't they have to go back to the department before it gets loaded to the server or something?
I think they still would have to. So when they pull into the garage for shift change or
Yeah.
for reports and things like that, it's automatically uploading while they're there.
Okay.
It would do the same thing, but it would be uploading to, Axon would provide a temporary server or storage device, and then it gets put up to the cloud.
Okay,
But that portion is a part of the overall package.
okay. And then as far as putting things together for the DAs and searching and things, who's responsible for that now?
So that's mainly Nicole Cook, who works in our Forensic and Technical Services unit, and then Danielle Hibbard. They're the ones that are packaging and putting that together. And that's a very, it's a detailed and lengthy process, because it takes a lot of time to pull stuff back off of there to put, and they're putting it on discs and they're putting it to Dropbox. And in fact, today she had one that was so large that they had to put it on a 64 gig flash drive, which just took an inordinate amount of time, where if it was bundled, like I had mentioned, that would be throwing it into some, basically throwing the case number into a link, sending it to them, and then that gives them access to just whatever they've been given permission to, and then they have to pull it off on their end at the DA's office or wherever else.
Did you do like an estimate of how much that would save per request, like? And then also I have that same question for the citations, like per citation, and then how many do you do?
I don't think they have it broken down that, we certainly could, but I don't think we have that.
It just would be interesting to know if it's going from an hour to 5 minutes, and then you say that people will be able to do other duties that you haven't been able to get to or something like that. And then also with the parking citations, that involves a lot of different people, I think, doesn't it?
Yes, so it involves a number of different people. So they're saying about, what is this? For the parking citations, they're estimating it'll save about 520 hours of staff time per year. So that one is documented here. I don't know if the other ones are broken out that way, though.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Chris, do you have to do both of those at the same time, or could you do one year and one the next? Like the squad cams and the interview? Or does that all have to happen at the same time?
No, they're not. They're independent projects, so you could do one without the other. In fact, we did body cameras without these, so you can stagger it over the course of time if necessary.
And is one more important than the other, or more immediate?
Well, the squad camera one is probably more important because we don't have an alternative. I mean, the alternative for an interview room is you just continue to bring in your digital recorder, which isn't ideal, but at least it's an option. If your squad camera is no longer functional, you either have no squad camera, or you're going to have to buy it through utility and replace it, because they're not looking at putting a, they're probably not going to have a maintenance package available to us anymore.
Any other questions at this point? Was that everything, Chris?
Well, then there's this police facilities maintenance, but I think that's more of a DPW item for police.
Okay.
At least that's how I'm reading it.
Yeah, and then the evidence vehicle storage.
Oh, yeah, that's to be determined. So what we were looking at trying to do is build some sort of pole barn or something on the property, but just based on the landscape and what's underneath and everything, it sounds like that's probably not even an option for us, given our current
Footprint?
situation.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to look. We'll probably have to look at something off-site at some point in the future. I know we had mentioned in the past if we could, if there was room on a DPW property or some other city facility, that would be fantastic, because we really are in a bad situation with regard to our evidence vehicles.
Could buy a storage unit across the street.
You
Couple
know,
of them.
There are departments that have relationships with storage units, and actually, now I don't think they have the volume that we do, because we would
Yeah.
probably take up
A third of their.
half of their place. But there are departments that do it. When we call around to ask what people are doing, that is one. But they're renting out like one or two of them.
Okay.
We'd need like 15 of them, 18, 20, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a 2020 or later?
It's probably later, because we don't have a plan right now.
Okay, thank you.
Talking
Any
about
other?
maybe gravel, though,
Oh,
right?
Pete?
Gravel pad or something, that's what Chief was talking about.
In the interim, yeah, just because right now they're just put kind of on the grass. Well, they came out to look at a vehicle. When I say they, I believe it was MPD and the State Patrol, because it was an accident. But they're climbing through 3-foot high grass, and they said there's snakes and everything else out there, and they're like, what are you guys doing out here? And we're like, well, we don't have any place to put them.
Is there fencing around there yet, or is that?
No, it's
not-
kind of a mess right now, because you still have where they're dumping all the dirt, and we're still doing the training facility, so it's probably worse than normal right now, where at least once we get everything situated, we can probably throw down some gravel, and at least they won't be climbing through grass and snakes and everything else. But long-term, we need a covered facility that will be able to house some of these, because some of these really, they can't be outside, in which case they're in our garage, but then that's where our vehicles with computer equipment and things can't be.
So you need a storage facility for up to 24 vehicles. Do you know what the size of that might be?
No, we did have it kind of mapped out. I don't remember what that was though now. We did have some dimensions.
So really, you don't need any heating system, anything for just storing, per se, like, as you were talking about, maybe if it would be impossible because of the, if we're not building down, well, what's the concern about the environmental concern, really?
On our current property?
Yeah.
Well, because it's built on a landfill, so
I
you
know,
can't
I know
have,
that. Yeah, garbage disposal.
The foundations would need a geosphere. It'll get better. It doesn't have the geotechnical to support a
Okay,
foundation.
that's it.
excellent answer. That's what I was looking for those words, I couldn't find them.
That's exactly what he was
I've been
thinking.
in a lot of meetings
Good
about
thing.
dirt.
But
Any
to answer
other-
your question, yes, it wouldn't need heat. I mean, obviously, the more that it had, the better, because then we could process vehicles in there, but that would be like the Cadillac. We're just looking for like a Yugo. I mean, we'll take whatever we can get to cover some, to protect the vehicles. They would have to be secure, because some of these vehicles are actually evidence. So it would need to be a secure facility that we could at least monitor and ensure was not tampered with.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we have administration next. Want to touch base on those?
Sure, there's 2 items here. The first is the virtual software solution. Tony talked about that before. Part of our strategic plan encompasses creating a virtual city hall for residents and businesses to access our services 24/7, 365 days a year. Right now, we don't have a comprehensive solution for people to do that. This would hopefully get us towards that for the licenses and permits and complaints and things. We've been casually looking, and we're going to be starting to engage all the departments who would need to be involved to write an RFP, so we could have something identified by the end of the year for that part of the virtual city hall. There are other softwares that we would also be looking at. One of the things is our Legistar module, officers and people. Right now, we keep that outside. I don't know if it's in an access spreadsheet, so people could apply it. And when their times are expiring on commissions or committees, it would automatically help us keep that up and monitor that for us. Another is changing or adding for our general code. We have our ordinances online. We don't have our administrative policies and procedures in a place where the public can necessarily see them. We have them internally, and sometimes it's a challenge to search for things with them, keep them up to date. We had contacted General Code to see if we could put our policies and procedures along with our ordinances, then people could just search that one place and find if there was a ordinance or a policy and procedure, and then they actually do the updating for you generally. Then we also have possible GIS enhancements for our zoning code, digital signage software, HRS program for our employees and things like that. So I'm not sure how far we can stretch the 300,000, but we'll try. So it really is necessary for us to move to the next level and also to provide those services, and then also to become more efficient with the employees as people move on, and we can reallocate positions to different things that are done very manually now.
Thank you. Any questions? Very good.
The second item is for remodeling of City Hall. Another initiative that we have is to reconfigure how we serve citizens if they do choose to come into City Hall. Right now, pretty much every department has their own reception area, person that answers when someone walks in and things like that. And we are very open, and it's concerning. We've had some security reviews of our building, and we want to mitigate the security risks that have been identified through that with a remodel. Or the other option, I don't think we're going to talk about it tonight, is the having a new building. So this request in the first year, these are just really rough estimates. The first year I put $100,000 for a design and then space needs analysis, and then $1.9 million. That would include probably technology that we made to do construction and other security enhancements that we would need. So these are just very rough estimates. So that could be $1 million. It could be, I'd rather be a little more conservative in the estimate than have to come back and ask for double. So.
Thank you.
Does that include the HVAC needs here?
Those are actually, no.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair,
Alderman Vitale.
Rebecca, we're talking about remodeling, maybe, City Hall, right? I mean, that's why we talk about the $1.9 million, right? That's an estimate. So, what would be the idea, and this was coming through my mind just as well. If we do that, talk about remodeling, what I would like to see, an environment where would be more of, whether it's the first floor or the second floor, have like a more of open concept. To me, that's would be the remodeling,
Mm-hmm.
You have everything within, whether it's the first floor or second floor, not just have all these rooms, that, to me, would really make the building look a lot better for office, for people. It gives the employee more energy instead of being a room all cooked up. To me, I think it would be the move to follow, really. I mean, if we're talking about remodeling,
Mr. Chair, that is the idea, but with a security for the public, but having a more open concept for the departments to interact and collaborate, and so we can, as things change, as time changes, you might need to reallocate space to a different department. You need to refocus that. We really don't have that opportunity now. Like you say, we're pretty set with all the walls in those spaces. So yes, that's definitely what we've gone for with looking at remodeling.
good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So you mentioned building a new city hall is another sort of thing that might want to be looked at. I mean, how much would that compare towards just remodeling?
So one of the other requests that we'll probably go through over at the next meeting, I think there's an estimate of what,
For repairs, like
Yeah, the overall repairs for City Hall, if you look over the next 10 years, is $10 million. We have a lot of HVAC things that need to be updated. So we were trying to maybe put Public Works and City Hall together, see if we could synergize those things. I don't think necessarily that's gonna work due to how our city is really built up, so we don't really have a lot of space, but we're looking at that. So we had, was it $45 million for both of those? Yeah, so maybe 15 for a City Hall. Yeah, that's just really ballpark estimates.
Any other questions? Okay, that'll wrap up the administrative portion, and now we are down to engineering versus public works.
You wanna take the vehicles maybe? So, cause Jim's here, I don't know, is that, you're gonna be at the next meeting, aren't you?
Yeah.
Or he might not be, and just, Jim Lou.
I wasn't prepared to do vehicles.
No, Jim,
Okay.
Jim is here
Oh,
to
okay.
discuss the vehicles.
Good.
So,
Sure. Jim, you wanna come up?
You want to come up? Where's the mic?
Jim, you're the only guy who came up with no
I don't have a
cost.
cheat
There's
sheet for
no
the
dollars.
vehicles, sorry.
Comfortable back in the corner.
So, we'll probably be on page 13, yeah, page 13 and 14, or 13, 15 for the 2020.
Move to cut all IT things.
Would you like me to proceed down the list of equipment here and just
I think
give an
that would be good,
overview of
yeah.
where we're at? Okay.
Right.
So, yes, as you can see here, we've got a 1997 Caterpillar backhoe, streets division. We're going on 20-plus years old on that unit. That's a high-use, rough-use piece of equipment right there. Tag teamed with that is the Buster right there with their water department works and just basic street repairs right there. That is in continual use during the course of a week. It's really one of the core items right there. Very well used, but very much needed. So this would, replacing those machines right there, those pieces of equipment would definitely carry the city 15, 20 years down the road. So it'd be an excellent investment.
The next one you said to delete. You
Right.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
Packer?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the following one was a 52,000, went
Right.
down,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So for our poly plows, because as we're replacing equipment, we're also upgrading the equipment with a new style hitch, and that's where these poly plows come in, right here. So it reduces the abuse that the equipment takes right there, because this plow is able to float on the roadway. So if they hit a manhole, they hit some debris, whatever, that plow literally will jump up, just hop right over the top right there. And where our older style plows will take all that shock load right back into the truck there. So it's, and plus, like I say, it's a contour following plow, so you're gonna clean the road better. They have cleaned the road better. The guys love them. The snow comes off easier because of the poly material. And down the road, from a maintenance standpoint, obviously they're poly and they hold up excellent. Very, very pleased with them. And like I say, the operation of it, the guys just love them right there. So they definitely enhance the plowing right there. So supervisor vehicles right there, that's aged and got some high miles on. Unfortunately, it's a Ford Escape, and most of the time they use it as like a little mini pickup truck. If you ever looked in the back end of what they've got in there, they've got buckets with asphalt, they've got rocks in there, they've got everything in there. So like I say, it's well used, well seasoned, and definitely would need to be turned around. Right.
What year is that one, Jim?
That is in '09.
So they couldn't use one of the old police vehicles until we get to the bigger ones?
That, now, if you said a Tahoe, that would be a different ballgame right there, okay? One of the Impalas, that wouldn't be practical, but like I say, and so yeah, there would be some potential on that end right there.
What are you planning with this 29,000? What kind of vehicle?
Well, we're looking at, well, obviously talking to the supervisor right there, but getting something, hopefully just a notch up from their escape line right there. We've got to see where things are gonna be price-wise. Like I say, they've made it work, they're comfortable with it right there. So, like I say, we're gonna be in that same realm right there. They don't have a need for a pickup truck with a plow, okay, because.
What about just a regular pickup? It just seems weird to throw gravel and things like that inside of a inside vehicle. It just.
And you're right, when you look at the back end right there, they're a spot situational type position right there, where they go out and go to a location right there. They're helping out, so to speak. They might just grab one little bit here, a little bit there, but they aren't out like a full supervisor out there like Tim Schneider. He's got the rollout bed in the back. He's totally designed for this. We could go in that route, but what makes this thing nice, this vehicle nice, for example, we'd go into a two-wheel drive pickup truck. Well, they use this for plow operations from a monitoring standpoint, and that's where the all-wheel drive comes in handy, right there. And so we've got the vehicles equipped with the plows. We've got our 250s with the plows, and but this is kind of a niche in between right there with the all-wheel drive part of it. They've got the room in the back, okay? It's not an ideal situation, but it's much more practical than a two-wheel drive pickup truck, but we also can't justify the expense of a four-wheel drive and the plow and everything else that goes with it. And Tim goes out and uses that vehicle to monitor pre-storm, during the storm. They're out all the time in that vehicle. And so an all-wheel drive is a must of some way, shape, and form right there. But like I say, we don't feel that it needs to ramp up to the level over the top with a full-blown four-wheel drive pickup truck and plow. So I'm open for suggestions though, however. Always looking for more input on that. So, but that's our reasoning for that right there. The next item on here is our walk-behind concrete saw. I don't have the year in front of me. I think that's around 15 years old, if I remember correctly. That is a major component to our street repairs. They go out and they'll make their cuts and then bust things out right there from a water repair standpoint, whatever, just general maintenance. This is well seasoned. We just had a failure today with it. They've got a large job tomorrow that they've got to take care of. We were very fortunate. We were able to get a hold of the parts today to get that back up and going for them. But time has caught up with it right there. We've done real good with it, but it's right on the edge right there when they need it, and it's down. And we just don't have a saw that size. Is a rarity to try and rent, because I've been in that position where I've gotten a call late at night, they're doing a job out on Highway 100, and their saw breaks, and where am I gonna find one? Well, I did some research ahead of time, and all that did was let me know that there wasn't anything around. So that's why we've gotta have something that we've gotta count on. Like I say, the saw went down today, and people got nervous. We were fortunate to get the parts and pieces for it right there.
It looks like from the paperwork that it's a 2004, at least that's what is indicated.
Yeah. Yep. Refuse packer, that definite necessity right there. We've got a extremely aged packer fleet right here. And it's disappointing because I've been here long enough to see, to know when these were purchased new, and to know that at that time, you could get 2 of them for the price of 1 right now. And that's what really, it really hurts, because you buy 2 at a time, well, they're gonna wanna end up leaving at the same time, but we've only, you know, it's 2 to 1 right now. And so it really is putting us in a bind, the way these equipment in general, the way the prices have gone up. But definitely a necessity right there. We've patched these, we've rebuilt the back ends, we've done above and beyond right now, and we've just pushed the limits on these right now. So definite necessity to replace.
Is this similar to the age of the one we just deleted?
It's older. Yeah, yep.
It's 2002.
One, yeah,
Yeah.
that's one, yeah.
Jim, Mr. Chair, I would like
Alderman
to ask
Vitale.
you, once they go at the auction blocks, so do we get some revenue return? I mean,
And you know, we do, Vince. We've been very fortunate right now. Over the last few years, I'd say it's probably been involved at least 5 years now with a company, Wisconsin Municipal Auctions, okay? And matter of fact, we just sold a piece of equipment today on there. We used to go through the county site, you know, once a year or twice a year, spring, fall, and that was all dependent on who showed up, what was the weather like. And our return versus what we actually had to pay between all the fees and the advertising and everything else, it just did not work out well. This way, it lets us move this equipment when we can move the equipment. We just don't have to have 2 times a year. And it gives us this huge viewing base out there, being online. And so we've seen a tremendous increase in our revenue from our used equipment. And so, yes, it works out very well. Very pleased with it. This company is top-notch. They handle all the paperwork, everything, and they just send us a check, and that works out very well.
But in all fairness, even getting a lot more than we get from the county site, we still don't get a ton from auctioning these off.
Oh,
I
no.
mean, we use our equipment very well.
Oh, yeah,
before we auction.
it's well seasoned.
no, I shouldn't say that, but, Mr. Mayor, there was a supervisor, you know, here on those pickup trucks. You know, many times I see him, you know, I talk to him, open up the driver's side door, the whole truck. I mean, it was so filthy. You know, I mean, myself, I didn't even would sit in a car like that, really. I mean, it was really a shame. I mean, he's gone, that's why I say, I won't say the name, you know. I bet you know what I'm talking about, Jim, you know. I mean, it was really uncalled for, a vehicle that you're using every day, you're responsible for. How long it takes to clean it up? Have somebody clean it up, you know? I think you get a constituency, or somebody look, I said, gee, what a pigsty, you know, really. I mean, he threw everything in, you know, all the things, garbage, whatever you can think about it, you know? I mean, it was not really appropriate. I kind of mentioned to him, I said, geez, why don't you clean this darn thing once in a while? I mean, that's kind of bad sometimes, you know?
Mr. Chair.
Rebecca?
I believe we're on, now we could go to page 15 and talk about the equipment and vehicles for the utilities.
Sure.
Water utility, we've got listed here a vacuum trailer, and what that is, that's a hydro vac trailer. And as you may have could recall, we just picked up a standalone hydro truck, approximately a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, with all the buried utilities right now. It is just a absolute must to have a hydro unit, because they can work around all the fiber optic, they can do what they need to do, and engineering can attest right there, just in the amount of hydroing that they have to do for the directional drill right now to locate all of these. And am I correct, if you hydro, you don't have to go through the process of to speed up the process right there, if you can go through and hydro everything, as far as from a marking
Yeah.
standpoint?
Well, I think you still have to mark it, but
Right, okay. But no, and what this is a smaller trailered unit right here that is very convenient for our water utility division. Goes good for the curb boxes, things like that. Very convenient for them, it's worked very, very well for years. This is, well, it's an '05 right there. You can see we're going on 15 years old right there, you know. So it's definitely seen its better time, and it's right on the edge of wearing, in other words, internally out on this. So it's an excellent time to move this along. We'll get a little change out on that auction site,
Yes.
Vince, right there for it. But yet we'll get something in that's gonna carry us down the road. What's nice is you look at the time that this has lasted, but what it's done for them to save. Everything, that used to be by a shovel, they'd go down with a shovel, and now this hydro unit does it.
Makes a big difference.
Oh, excellent job, you bet. Yes, it does. So, meter reading truck, standard pickup truck for water department. Going to be outfitted, of course, with the warning lights and with a truck box. We'll probably move over what we can move over from an existing vehicle. Just mileage time on that unit right there. Drill rig, that is going on 16 years old right now. Water main breaks, very, very critical piece of equipment. And for locating, they've got a correlator system that they use in conjunction with this now. And when you combine the two, they're able to really save time. But this is a key piece of equipment for pinpointing where that leak is. They'll go out, they'll drill that hole down through the concrete, they'll go down, they'll listen, they'll get close with the correlator, and then this drill rig gets them right on spot, right there. So, working with Water Department, Mike, he's got a very good outlook for the future, and this would be is a very necessary piece of equipment to keep them, to carry them down the road another 15, 20 years. So, huge plus right there. And what this is 214, this is the truck, this is the vehicle for it. Unit number 1667, this is actually the drill rig number, okay? So it's broken up here in two pieces right here, and that's because we service it as two separate pieces of equipment. So, like I say, works out extremely well, but it's got the time on right now, and I'd like to have $1 for every hole they've drilled, because boy, oh boy, they've really punched some serious holes with that.
Mr. Chair?
Stormwater utility, vacuum sweeper. Last week, we had 2 sweepers in. We had to patch up on the blower boxes because they wear out from the inside. They look nice and shiny on the outside, but the abrasiveness of the material they're picking up off the roadways right now just unfortunately wears them out from the inside out. So to keep our roads, keep us up to speed with what we need to do there, street cleaning, we definitely need to stay on top of that. Solid waste, we've got the recycling truck. This, what we're doing right here, we want to replace 854. It's a very well-seasoned truck right there. It's a split body truck. It's not efficient for what we've got right now. So what we want to do is replace that one with a 25-yard capacity, single hopper on the back, right there, because with the carts that we have, this would be obviously designated for solid waste. The 857 listed below that, that is an extremely good truck chassis. And what we want to do with that is just take the back end off and put a 25-yard body on the back end. Get rid of the split body, we'll sell them. Those, by the way, they get some pretty good money. I've got a guy that's tapping us on the shoulder for these. But that's so we can reuse what we've got right there. It just, this truck hasn't been used much just because it's got the split body and it just doesn't work well. Now we get this back end off, we've got a very nice cab and chassis. This will save us $100,000 and some by doing it this way. Roughly 110, 115,000 we'll save because we won't have to get the cab and chassis.
That's great, Jim.
Yeah, so we can use what we've got and
Yes.
get rid, plus we're gonna, like I say, we're gonna get some return on those because they, in the right location across the country, they are definitely worth some money, so.
Thanks, Jim. Rebecca, did you have a question?
Yes, I had a question about the meter reading truck.
Sure.
Does that have to be a truck?
And you know, for what they do, because they have their water keys that every truck has in the back end right there. And what it does, that gives them the flexibility when they're out there to handle something other than a meter reading, okay? So my opinion right now, yes, it should be a truck because they're also assisting in the other operations of the water department, so.
Do you happen to know if they have a priority? And I guess the reason I'm saying this is, water utility is really not in a good place financially right now. And along with the street projects, we're looking at over 3 million. There's no way we could borrow that kind of money. Water utility has zero money. So would you know any of the priorities of these?
What I would like to do is really talk true value with Mike, okay, before I would, you know, I've got, looking at it right here, I could say, yeah, okay, here and here and here. Mike may have some different views, and I guess he's really the one that I'd want to get with right there and say, hey, okay, if we've got to cut something, you know, I'm there to help facilitate and get things and keep them out there. He's really the guy that knows the meat and potatoes, what they've got going. So, can I answer any other questions?
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, just a quick question about like recycling trucks and all. I've noticed some municipalities, when upgrading their sort of fleets, they didn't account for how narrow alleyways are, and so I'm just wondering if that's been, just wondering about it. Not saying that people haven't considered that.
Or are you referring to the automated?
Or,
what?
yeah, for the automation, for even, yeah, for all of the above.
Okay. Automated, several years back, not that many years back, there was a very good study done here as far as the usefulness of it because of the design of the city that we have, okay? The narrowness that we've got and basically the customer base that we have to take care of. And because of the high lines and things like that, the trees and things like that that were out there, and in order to really make it go, we'd have to have the carts brought out, and there's people that would literally have to go down the block and bring their cart out or come through the house.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, but anyway, yes. On that note, yes, we did entertain that was, I know Mike Lewis spent a lot of time on that, entertaining that, and then doing comparisons right there on how things would go. So yes, unfortunately, like I say, we've got a unique customer base here. We've got a couple of different areas right here, so it would make it extreme, well, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
That was just bottom line, so, yeah. But like I say, these units right here, they will help us out tremendously. They're rotating trucks right now. People are recycling more, and so those trucks are filling up more, which is great. That's exactly what you want. And so now, when we get these larger capacity trucks right here, it's gonna increase our efficiency right there. So, And when things work well and are efficient, then the guys are happy too. It's a huge, huge plus for them.
Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. It's about 7:30.
Can you finish in yours in half an hour?
Do you wanna, I'm just asking because Patrick, you have to leave around a little before 8. Quarter to 8, so we've got
Just getting up the hill.
about 15 minutes. We're not gonna lose quorum, but I'm assuming you'll wanna be here, right?
Yeah.
So
I
how
have a
much,
backup plans.
do you?
Just have to text.
Okay. All right, let's plug away on engineering
We're
then.
gonna go back to page 5.
Okay. So the first street there is Grant Street. That's a carryover from this year. We didn't have the money to get it done. So we've already had the public hearing on that one. That street was originally paved in 1928, resurfaced in 72, so it's 91 years old. It's doing all the sewer, water, and sanitary. Enough said. Cleveland Avenue is also one that I already had the hearing this year. We ran out of money, so that's a resurface. It's a concrete road from 1957, so it's 62 years old. It's lasted 12 years longer than we would have expected. So that one we would just be resurfacing, not a lot of utility work. Euclid and Orchard Hills would be finishing off the last of some of the last streets in Orchard Hills. That was paved in 1961. It's 58 years old. There's bad soils out there, so we usually reconstruct those streets. Lakefield is right next door, 1961, it's 58 years old. We'd be reconstructing that. Not a lot of sewer work because that was built in the 60s, but let's see, 58th Street.
Sorry, Pete, can I just jump in on that one? Lakefield would also be that little dead end, Lakefield going
Yes, yes.
east? Okay.
Oh,
East of South 119, gotcha.
Yeah, east of 119.
Sorry.
And 58th Street from Beloit to Mobile, that's one of the ones from 1923 again, resurfaced in 1972. It's 96 years old. We'd be doing all the sewer, water, and sanitary. 86th Street is one that I had on the budget for 2019. I never had the public hearing. 86th and Dakota are roads that were put in as a seal coat road in 1941, and I don't know if they ever intended that to be the permanent pavement, but it ended up being the pavement for 78 years. So they've never actually had a concrete road or curb and gutter or any kind of drainage there, so this would be giving them their first concrete road in the history of their houses. So Dakota's the same way. It's just a seal coat road from 1941. Not a lot of sewer and water there because it's not that old, I guess. 90th Street, then we're doing a bunch of streets over in the same vicinity. I'm probably going to group them all in the same contract. So 90th Street from Greenfield to Lapham, that was paved in 1927, resurfaced 1976, 92 years old. All new sewer, water, sanitary. 94th Street is just an asphalt road. It's only 32 years old. It was paved in 1987, but asphalt doesn't last as long. Although it is cheaper to resurface, so that's why that one hasn't lasted as long. It's probably only a 3-inch asphalt pavement. But we would be saving the curb, saving all the driveways, so resurfacing down the middle, so it should be fairly inexpensive. 96th Street's the same way. That was paved in 1988. So it's only 31 years old, but we would be saving the curb and gutter and the driveways and sidewalk and just putting a new asphalt surface down. 97th Street, same way, paved in 1988, 31 years old. Just resurfacing down the middle, leaving the curb and gutter, fixing any curb and gutter that's crooked or anything, but Walmer from Nashville, Oklahoma was paved in 1977, so it's only 42 years old, but it's fallen apart. There's potholes at every joint. Gets a lot of traffic, so I guess that's why it's falling apart.
That's the one behind Wild Toyota, right?
Yeah, yes. Well, we're not that part of it. We're doing the part by Visiting Angels, or whatever that's called, yeah.
National Oklahoma, right around the corner from the bank.
Okay.
Yeah. We did the part of Wolmer down that way already. We patched
Oh,
it.
yes, yes, the National.
This one's too far gone to patch, so we would resurface it, so not a lot of sewer work. Then we get into our WISDOT jobs. We've got like a record number of federal money. So this is national from 62nd to 65th. That was paved in 1912, resurfaced in 1986, so it's 107 years old. This is just the engineering. This is a federal project, so it takes 4 years, so I don't have any utility stuff yet. We're just designing it. It'd be paved in 2023, I think. Then Lincoln Avenue. This is the one where we had the carryover money that I stole. So that is funded through the carryover, but this is just the engineering at this point.
Lincoln Avenue from, excuse me, Lincoln Avenue from where you talk about west of 100 or?
This is, we're really just doing the three intersections, the 71st, 76th, and 84th.
Okay.
They're the three, some of the worst, most dangerous intersections in the city.
Right, totally
76th Street is the #1 most dangerous intersection in the city, 131 crashes, 50 of those injuries. 84th Street is 4th, that is 70 accidents, 30 of them were injuries. 71st Street had 43 accidents, 18 of them were injuries. So we'd be putting in all new signals, but also quickly resurfacing it so that because we're probably gonna have to widen. We're also gonna have to probably buy some real estate to get the turn lanes that we need to make them safer.
I think that's gonna happen. This is done for engineering, so engineering's in 20.
So it's
Work's gonna be
2020,
done in 21 now?
2022 probably, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
I get a lot of requests.
yeah. It's a federal project, so we gotta go through the historical and the hazmat and the archaeological and all sorts of reports and 30, 60, 90. And then if there's eminent domain, that takes a year at least, so it takes a while. Then the next one is another, we've got 6, I'm gonna read off, there's 6 intersections that we got this hazard elimination program money because we have some very dangerous intersections. So the next one here is Lincoln Avenue at from 91st to 93rd. That was 59 accidents, 17 of those are injuries, so that's like the 12th most dangerous intersection in the city. The pavement there is horrible, so we're getting, free pavement from the feds too, because they pay 90% of this. So we're getting all new pavement there as well, as long as we're there. Let's see, 76th and Beecher. And all these ones, the traffic controller in the cabinet is like 24, 28 years old, so we're getting all new signal equipment as well to replace all that, which is worth $100,000 each. So the 76th and Beecher, the traffic signal controller is from 1996. It's 23 years old, so we'll be getting all new equipment and poles and heads and controller and cabinet. Not a lot of pavement there, but because there's not much we can do with the buildings there, but that one is also one of the more dangerous intersections. 60th and Greenfield, the controller is 23 years old. The pavement's new, we're not touching the pavement, we're just putting in all of the new equipment, the poles, the heads, the controller.
That area wasn't touched when it was reconstructed?
We, at the time, kind of reused a lot of the poles, the controller at that point. So now we're getting all new equipment. And the rules have changed too. You're supposed to have the signal heads be above each lane now. So we're probably talking about, like monotubes would have the heads over each lane to make it safer. So That's that. Beloit Road from 60th to Lincoln, this will be a big job. This is, pavement was from 1958, it was resurfaced in 1990. So it's 61 years old, but I do know that before Brian Block passed away, he was the one who resurfaced that. He said that the base was horrible, maybe because of all the trucks from the yards, I don't know, but, so that one desperately
shot.
needs to be done, yeah.
Boiler is shut.
Yeah. But that'll be, this is just the engineering for all of these that I'm listing off here. Reconstruction will be in 2022. Then next year's segment of National Avenue from 76 to 82nd, that is actually the construction dollars. That will be streetscaped just like the most beautiful street in the city from 70th to 76th. Same lights, same brick, same benches. We are going to approach it a little bit differently in 3-block segments so that by the time the fair rolls around, we will at least have westbound traffic open. We're hoping that will work. We hope that we get a better, more competent contractor that can get that done. But that road was originally paved in 1941, resurfaced in 86, so it's 78 years old, but it carries a lot of traffic, so it's not holding up as long. And then the pavement patching, that's on the next one below there.
Can I ask you a quick question, Pete, on the 96th, 97th? It looks like 97th is only a block, Orchard to Lapham, is that right?
Yes.
Why aren't they going all the way up to Greenfield
Because
Avenue?
Walsh did the rest of it when they did the Zoo interchange.
Okay,
That's right north of the Presbyterian Church, right? So,
okay,
yeah, Walsh paved it for free because they were coming in that way to build Mount Stallis, or otherwise known
Gotcha.
as, what do we call that, Conrad Hill, or,
yeah,
so they were trucking in that way, and they agreed to resurface it, so I'm not touching the part
okay.
that they did.
And then, I'm just thinking of Little League and the programming at Reservoir Park. If you've got 97th and 96th and potentially 94th torn up within the same,
95th.
and 95th?
Not 95th.
Not 95th, yeah, so, just,
Well, we'll probably stagger them so that people have a place to park.
okay.
We usually
I mean,
try and
usually
stagger.
Little League season is done by July. I don't know if it could be an August, September
And these are
project.
quicker jobs, so they probably would be later in the summer.
Okay.
Doing a lot of sewer work, so. it's,
Just something to think about.
it's the jobs with a lot of sewer work that I start early.
Because I know the older people and I have gotten not a lot, but a fair amount of complaints of people parking in front of their homes, possibly state fair-esque at a smaller level types of complaints. Just something to consider in the planning,
So later in the year.
ideally. I mean,
I think that's what I would have done anyway.
okay,
So they're
thanks.
Quickie jobs. Then we go down to the pavement patching. That's where we go around and patch various places around the city for free. So a street that's maybe not holding up, it's too soon to special assess again, we can patch it and bring it back up to where it should be. The National Avenue, the streetscaping, we have it separated out. I mean, that 1.3 million includes all the street lighting, all the wiring, all the sidewalk too, I think, so that, it's the same, actually, it's less, I think there's less flower boxes, less of the landscaping. So it's probably not as elaborate as what we did at the library, but same type of thing. And there's one little alley that I guess we never did before. It only affects 3 people, but they've been complaining to Alderman Rote, and it's in bad shape, and one person there is disabled, so he has trouble getting into the alley or something because it's all broken up or something. But so that alley needs to be done. It's a very short little alley. Then the 84th and National Contamination, that also was a carryover from 28 funds that we're actually gonna get going on now because it was a carryover. That's where WisDOT put in the nice new signal at 84th and National, but then was kind enough to call the DNR and tell them that there's contamination there. I don't know why they did that to us, but, so then we had to study it, and the study is finding that there's nothing that needs to be cleaned up, but we had to spend a lot of money to prove that, so. That was a favor from WisDOT after they gave us that signal. Then the traffic engineering traffic signals, I feel kind of strongly about, especially given what's happened in the past couple of weeks. We had TAPCO come out on Friday after we met with you and them, and for free, they came and looked in a couple of our cabinets. You know, WisDOT installed about 11 of these very advanced controllers for us with cameras and microwave, and we've never had that kind of equipment before. We don't really know how to maintain it or even to, you know, aim it. Like the cameras, I don't think our DPW staff knows really how to aim the cameras or how to maintain these things. So part of what TAPCO would do would include training us how to do that, but also to take inventory of what we have. WisDOT told us they were giving us one thing, ends up giving us other, we don't even know what we have in the cabinets there. And they gave us other equipment that they swapped out. So, so we would like to get an inventory of what we have, get it all in GIS, get the timings in GIS, so that, because we do get calls from lawyers, like yesterday I got a call. He wants the timing plan for a signal. Well, if I had that on GIS, I could just print that out and get it to him. But as it is now, we may have a paper copy upstairs, or Dave Young may have a copy, but we really should have that all in one place. And so it would include training, it would include inventory, and then maintenance. There's some things that we don't know how to do, so he took a look in a couple of the cabinets, 92nd and National, come to find out that they hadn't plugged in the loop detector. So the loops weren't doing anything. We didn't know that because it's a new piece of equipment. We didn't know that the contractor had ripped out the loop at 92nd and National, and for several weeks we were messing around with the timing to try and get it to work. Come to find out the way this controller works is when you sever that loop and take it out, it goes to the maximum time. So it was, you know, couldn't figure out why it was giving us the most time when we didn't really need all that time. Same thing was happening at 84th and National. They opened the cabinet on Friday. One of the fuses was blown, but that doesn't mean that the signal wasn't working. It was just working in a poor fashion. So the signal, and I had been noticing this for many weeks, but I figured I didn't know enough about it. It looked like it was still running through its cycle, but what it was doing was going to the maximum amount of time for no reason. So you're sitting there, you got thousands of people sitting there for no reason because the fuse was blown. So I think we need somebody to teach us how to maintain these things and to get us up to snuff, get it all in GIS, train us how to do this, do some of the maintenance that we don't know how to do or don't have the time to do. So that's what that's about. I guess our signals have been neglected. They kind of fall through the cracks because there are other more important things to do, and thousands of people suffer as a result. So let's take a little time on that.
One-time cost?
We need to stop.
We need to stop.
Stop light suffrage.
Alderman Weigel?
Before you get off the streets, what happened to Rogers, 76 to 84?
Well, because I ran out of money in 2019, and because I postponed Grant in Cleveland and 86th in Dakota, I had to drop something so that we didn't break the
It's
bank.
still online in the plan for 2020. I told the citizens 3 weeks ago, we fixed it.
Oh, you mean it's online? Okay, well,
I understand
yeah,
that.
okay.
I understand that.
Well, we'll have to update after this meeting, I guess, but yeah.
So it's gonna get some maintenance this year? Because I know what happens
second
when
year of
the street's ready to be redone, we stop giving it 11 the year before.
Well, you would hope that's the case, but that's actually not. Actually, the opposite actually happens a lot of times. They end up maintaining it before I get there, but I think Rogers will hang on. It's a seal coat street that
Okay.
it just
Well, like I
keeps
said,
going, but.
I had a citizen ask me about it 3 weeks ago. I looked up online, says, oh, no, it's on the CIP to be done next year. And he was happy about it. I don't think he realized he was going to get special assessment. So when he calls me back and asks me, we just made a decision.
We had to swap it out,
We
yeah.
had to swap out some of the
Right.
lane. So it will be in for sure in 21.
No, I don't say that, because I haven't swapped, no, I'm not, I haven't, no. It might get pushed off a few more years, because there's some others that I want to do first. So, it's a very expensive job. So I think I'm going to wait a few more years.
Until you retire.
No. No.
I think he's got a question for you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorta,
My blind spot.
All right. My question's a little more self-serving. Is there any plan to fix South 75th between Union Pacific and National? Because it's been torn up by all the equipment, all the cats and everything, while National was getting fixed. It wasn't good before it, but it just...
Actually, it's in the 2021 plan.
Okay, all right. Good to know.
So not next year, but the year after. Yes, I did. I thought that was coming up.
All
Yes.
right.
No. Maple?
Yeah, I think from Lapham to Reservoir. 22nd to Lapham to Reservoir.
Let's see. Do you want to care about the stormwater?
You want the stormwater utility?
Can you tell what is not one that you already?
Yeah, so, like, if you skip down to the illicit discharge elimination program, that's, something that I probably haven't talked about yet. It's required by the DNR that we, as part of our permit, that we seek out and find people who are violating, like the guy at the car wash on Highway 100 that was dumping suds into the storm sewer.
Yeah.
For probably 20 years, and we finally caught him, and he switched it back so that he's dumping the suds into the sanitary sewer. So that's something we're required by the DNR to do. The next one, the stormwater management plan for the DNR. They recently upped the standards. We're supposed to remove 20% of the suspended solids. Now they're dramatically changing that up to 60 or 70%. And they want to see a plan on how we're going to achieve that. I don't think the DNR is going to come down on us if we don't, there's not like a deadline, but they want to see that you're making progress. So if we have a plan and we keep doing things like permeable parking lots at the library, we will get credit, and their little model that they run, and we'll get closer and closer to 60%, and they'll be happy because we're getting closer and closer, but not that we would ever actually achieve that. We'll see. So that's a plan, just kind of a plan of ideas that they want to see what we're going to do to make sure, so that they know that we're serious about getting to that goal, I guess. The sewer televising was something we have to do before we reconstruct a street, just run a camera through there to see what if the pipe's collapsing, or if it's cracked, or if it's worth saving, or if it's not worth saving. So that's something we have to do. The senior center, she's been asking for that parking lot for several years. It is badly deteriorated now. I'm going to apply for MMSD funding. I'm pretty optimistic I would get some funding for that. So, but we can't apply till January, so I haven't put that on here yet. But so that would probably be another permeable parking lot like the library. The stormwater relay, that's to relay collapsing sewers that we find out from our sewer televising, ones that are not on a job that we happen to be doing. Guess that's-
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Vitale.
Pete, about the senior center, I mean, I know how the parking lot is, but I know be a few years down the road about maybe make some consolidation, you know. So I don't know if we spend the money to update the parking lot. Your future will be more discussions of come up with
Well,
some saving costs, you know, for consolidates at the health department, the senior center, you know, and so I don't know if it's something kind of, some of those things could be put on the side, you know, instead of investing in something that's gonna be, you can look at it. really.
Possibly. I mean, we actually already got funding to do City Hall's parking lot, but we're gonna give that money back
Okay,
because,
that's
because we were,
Why we spend money, you know, and then maybe a few years down the road, there's more, I don't know, but something could happen, you know, I mean, it's more wasting money, but, you know.
well, but then at the Public Works meeting, we had the discussion with Alderman Barzak about, he was insistent that we should continue to maintain things. You know, if it's gonna be 5 to 10 years now, until that happens, I don't know. That's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, I know it won't happen tomorrow, next year,
Right.
you know, that, you know, it's something to, you know. kinda
Well,
look
they're worried that
ahead.
it's not safe for some of the elderly people.
Yeah.
She's been complaining that it's not safe for them to walk through. And I guess we don't want a lawsuit or something, but that's a good point, though.
Can you just asphalt, is this asphalt or reconstruction?
To reconstruct with the permeable bricks and,
Oh,
would, you know, MMSD would help pay for that if we get the award that I'm thinking we might. So they would pay for the bricks. And it would help us towards our DNR goals, like I said, getting pollution out of the water.
Even looking down the road, even if the senior center wouldn't happen to be there, whatever is there would likely need a parking lot, right? So it wouldn't be a waste.
Yeah, I think Stevel's National Avenue corridor plan showed some sort of apartments there or something.
On the parking lot, or?
Yeah, I think it was kind of.
whose corridor plan?
Yours.
The city's corridor
Did
plan?
I say John Stevel?
Our
plan.
yes.
Right.
Any other questions?
I just have a question on utilities in general. This is a lot of money for the utilities. Like for storm, it's a whole extra $1 million than it was last year, so, or this year. So we just kind of have to be careful because, yes, it won't be taxes going up, but it will be all three of those utilities going up in addition to their operating costs, which storm still has some funds. Sewer still has some funds, not a ton, but when you look at the sewers page, it's like 3.6 million. So that's a lot of money for those utilities to have in 1 year of capital costs. And in the end, because we borrow general obligation debt for all of this utility work, it could actually hurt the city's bond rating as we go forward. So just something we have to be cognizant of. And then I guess my last question is just, can we really physically do all these?
Like capacity, like labor capacity wise?
Well, yeah, my staff is still rookie, so we're gonna try. I think the utility budget is conservative, because he didn't have time to really get into a lot of the details, so I think it is very conservative and high.
Conservative, okay, so this is worst case and hopefully it's gonna, because I know even the
It's definitely
19
the worst
plan
case.
came down a lot as
Yes,
well.
I think by half.
Yeah, in some
But
of
that
them,
was
yeah.
different. I think this will be closer, but,
So if
Patrick?
our borrowing is, for streets is 2.7, and just using page 5, the city, I think you're at 2.7 for the city cost before we touch anything else. So is there a prioritization to anything that you have in here?
Well, we're very
Borrow for
close.
the
I mean, 2.76,
But,
2.75.
but then you have public infrastructure, streets related below, another million.
1.2 million extra, but that's kind of that ancillary stuff that we
Okay.
split out. I mean, last year we got some extra road money, I don't know what's gonna happen there. So, yeah, this extra million that we're talking about, it could potentially be this
Okay.
1.2 million
I was
that
just-
we're looking at. But yeah,
Well, my costs, my estimates for street lighting are extremely high in here, because that's what we've been experiencing this year. If DPW can do more of the street lighting, that's gonna go way down. But
But don't you think that's a tall order with everything
If
they're
they're gonna
doing
do
with the
everything else,
conversions?
yeah.
Yeah, and the conversion stuff isn't in here at all.
No.
So that's
Right.
another million and, I know all these things separately don't seem like a lot, but when you take 2.7 and add 1.3 and 3 million and 3 million and 3.6 million, and then we get down to the 20 million of property and equipment. This is a huge plan.
It's a
Right now.
huge amount.
It's not something we can responsibly fund from a fiscal standpoint in 1 year.
All right.
Mayor,
Alderman Vitale.
Pete, I wonder if, with the street lighting, if the public works can have enough help, to go through that, install those poles and everything else, what would be the problem? Maybe, I don't know, in the long run, it would be cheaper to maybe having some estimates through private contract.
Well, that's what we're doing. That's what we've been,
So
that's what we've been doing.
I'd like to see that really more
They've been double.
aggressively, really.
They've been double what,
Really?
yes. So,
Private contractors.
right, so we've been hiring peeper all summer to do 80th and 75th and 55th. Habermill's doing 55th, that's another company. We've outsourced the street lighting. It's double. And they really don't know what they're doing, and we really have to hold their hand and.
And our electrical staff has to be out there anyway.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, really.
But if they're gonna do all the circuits too, then that's gonna be a lot of work, so.
So you gotta go out there anyway, really, to cover some of that work, really. Yeah.
So yeah, we tried outsourcing, it's coming in a lot more expensive.
So what's all figured out, of course, with the cost of benefits and everything, right?
Right, we gotta weigh, I guess, yeah, and that's what, on the 3rd, we're gonna have a presentation on the street lighting from our consultants.
Yes, yeah.
Any other questions? So that will, I believe, conclude item 3 this evening. And item 4 is 2019 progress. Is there anything new on that?
These we just had on in case.
Standing?
Yeah, so.
Same for the
probably
subgroup?
3, 4, and 5 can just be held till we meet. with
4
the
and
next-
5, right? Or 3 also, sorry, yeah.
3, 4, and we.
Right, yeah, we're not
have
taking
to
action.
go through all of the maintenance
Yeah,
and a lot of the other public works items.
okay. So, we don't need a motion for that, so we can just then have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.